Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kip Wallace. Welcome to the studios of WMDV, WGSR. And we have a very special evening planned for you tonight. This is an unusual situation for us. Unfortunately, one of the three candidates that we had originally booked to have our appearance with us tonight has not shown up. Jeff Evans, we hope that you're out there and we hope that you're safe and everything's okay. And if you come up the hill, we'll be happy to give you your slot. But we are talking tonight about the 20th Senatorial District for the state of Virginia. And with us is Senator Bill Stanley and Senator Roscoe Reynolds. Gentlemen, I do want to thank you very much both before we get started for making yourselves available tonight to all of the voters of the Star News region and specifically the 20th District. I know that it's been a long campaign, and as we start to wind things down, I know that voters have a lot of questions, and we're going to get to some of those as well. To start things off, what we'd like to do is give the candidates just a few moments to speak to you directly, to introduce themselves, who they are, what they stand for, and why they're running for this office. So what we'll do is start immediately to my left with Senator Bill Stanley. Senator?
Thank you, Kip, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to the citizens of the 20th District tonight. It's very important that citizens have a choice and that they understand what that choice is. You know, I've traveled over 26,000 miles I've put in my truck throughout the 20th District since I announced. I'm the senator in the 19th District, and after redistricting, over 40% of my district now became part of the 20th District. Some people have said that I abandoned my district, but rather I followed the citizens that I've been representing for the past 10 months. It is important for us when we go around to meet the people and to understand their concerns, but what I've asked them is a simple question. Are they better off than they were 14 years ago? And the resounding answer that I get is no. And for that reason, I think it's important that we have new leadership and bring new ideas to the table so we can create new solutions that will solve our economic problems here in Southside and Southwest Virginia. Talk is cheap. Our time is now, and we must find the solutions because we have to create the legacy for our children. Right now, our children have to leave after they get their education and find a job elsewhere because the jobs aren't here. We need to not only put Southside and Southwest Virginia back to work, but we have to create that legacy for our children while maintaining our rural, traditional ways of life down here. I represent the interests of the 19th District now in the 20th District, and I'll represent the interests of the 20th District in Richmond and be that strong voice that we need in Richmond so that we can solve our problems. So I'm asking for your vote coming up this Tuesday, November 8th. You will find me to be a tireless worker, and not one that just goes up there to vote, but goes up there to solve problems. Thank you. Thanks, Kip.
Senator Reynolds?
Kip, thank you very much. I'm proud to be here with Senator Stanley tonight. Most people know me. I grew up in this community. I've lived here all my lifetime. I've lived in the same house since 1972. My wife, Linda, is here tonight. Linda and I, in December, will have been married 41 years. Our daughter, Amy, our son, Andrew, grew up here, attended public schools here, and are graduates of the public schools of Virginia, and I'm very proud of that. My wife, Linda, is a retired Virginia educator. There's some tough times, there's no question about it, but the loss of the textile and furniture industry that occurs has not occurred because of votes that were cast in Richmond, Virginia. They're cast because of decisions that were made in boardrooms and made in other venues rather than the Virginia General Assembly. Some good things have happened also. RTI has come here. Drake Extrusions, ICFI has come here. The Williams Group has come here. Recently, Fanuel announced that it was coming here. Those are important steps in progress that have been made in this community. And recently, in Galax in the Senatorial District, there was an announcement of 350 new jobs, and an announcement also about that same time for some significant new jobs in the furniture industry in Danville. This district runs from Galax to South Boston to Rocky Mount, and a lot of good things have happened. Things are tough, but they would have been a lot tougher if the improvements that I've talked to you about have not occurred. I've got a proven record of doing things. I've talked about part of it: investment in education, New College Institute, investment in the community college, the Crossroads Institute in Carroll County, the Institute for Advanced Learning and Research in Danville, the Southern Virginia Education Center in Halifax County, the Virginia Museum of Natural History that's located here. The work I've done to help establish the Tobacco Commission Tobacco Commission is involved in every announcement of expansion or growth that takes place in South Side of Southwest Virginia. We are making progress. The progress is not happening as rapidly as I would like for it to happen, but it's important to point out that during the time that Senator Stanley referred to, I was in a minority. A majority in the General Assembly were Republicans. A good portion of that period of time, the leadership in the governor's office was Republican. And we've had help from Republican governors, and we've had hurt from Republican governors. We've had help from Democratic governors, and there have been occasions when Democratic governors did things that I wasn't in favor of. But all during that time, I fought for our community, and I will continue to do that. I've been willing to stand up to Appalachian Power Company when they have sought rates that were not fair to the people that I represent, and I will continue that. I stood up and fought for Route 58. There was no bypass around Danville, Martinsville, Stewart, or Hillsville when I started this. There were no 4-lane highways in Patrick County. Now there are. There are 3 projects taking place on Route 58 scheduled to begin in 2012. I've got a proven record, and it's that proven record that I'm asking you to cast a vote for me on November the 8th. Thank you very much.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you both for your comments. And what we want to do now is take one quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to jump right in. We want to let you know that if you have a question for either of these candidates, we urge you to give us a call here at the studios. Also, you want to log on to our Facebook page and submit your question in that manner. We'll be happy to take your questions as well. We've got a lot to go over. We've got a long evening ahead of us. Hopefully not too long, gentlemen. We'll take that first commercial break and be back with more. Stay tuned to Star News.
I'm Roscoe Reynolds, candidate for State Senate, and I sponsored this ad.
After 20 years as a Northern Virginia trial lawyer, Bill Stanley moved south, got elected to the Senate, then moved again, dumping his district to run for the Senate here. Now Stanley's running a negative campaign.
Stanley is not even in the phone book. That's bad.
Real bad.
Fellow Republican Jeff Evans said Stanley is a disloyal,
Hello, I'm Lane Perry, your sheriff. To give you an idea of how busy we've been these past 4 years, let's look at some facts. We made over 14,000 arrests. 847 of those were drug-related. When over 188,000 calls came in, we were there. On top of that, we take care of the courts, protect our schools, and run a jail. In 2011, the Henry County Sheriff's Office is fully accredited. I ask for your continued support on November 8th to continue working for you. Please vote Lane Perry for sheriff.
This ad paid for and authorized by Lane Perry for sheriff.
In Virginia, we're growing our economy and creating new jobs and opportunities. We cut spending and balanced our state budget. Virginia is the #1 state for business. To keep Virginia moving forward, I need Charles Poindexter in the House of Delegates. Charles will work with me to bring more jobs to Southern Virginia. A vote for Charles Poindexter is a vote for more jobs.
Thanks, Governor. I'm Charles Poindexter, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Paid for by the Republican Party of Virginia.
Hi, I'm Francis there, and I'm running for the school board from the Ridgeway District. I have been a teacher in the Henry County school system for 35 years, and teachers should be allowed to teach. I know how important discipline is in the classroom, and I intend to strongly support the administration and faculty in discipline matters. I will make sure that your tax dollars are spent wisely to improve education. I'm Francis there, and I would appreciate your vote on November the 8th.
Roscoe Reynolds has some nerve. We're losing jobs and Roscoe's busy running silly, false political ads. Does he really think his negative ads will make us forget he's voted for job-killing tax and spending hikes? Those were our neighbors' jobs, our friends' jobs, our jobs. And Roscoe's negative ads can't make us forget. We need new ideas, new leadership. Bill Stanley for State Senate.
I'm Bill Stanley, candidate for State Senate, and I approve this.
back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we are here in the studios of WMDV, WGSR, the Star News region, getting a chance finally to hear from the two candidates live on television tonight. And we're talking about the 20th district, and I hear this referred to by some reporters as the big dinosaur. When you look at the district on a map, it really is an interesting outline. Senator Reynolds, let me take this up with you first. From Wythe County all the way out to Halifax, South Boston, all of that region, with a large hook thrown in there near Pittsylvania County. What's it been like to try to talk to people who may not have been as familiar with you over the last couple of months?
You got a little confused. Wythe County is not in the district. In 2001, the majority, the Republicans then, did add Wythe County to the district, but Wythe County is no longer in the district. The farther west the district goes is to Galax in Grayson County. It's demanding. The travel time, however, is not as bad as the travel time was in the 20th district before redistricting. A trip up to Rural Retreat, which is in Wythe County, would take me better than 4 hours round trip, and if you ran into traffic problems on I-77, it could last longer than that. You know, one of the difficulties we have is that Southside and Southwest Virginia, when you start having to add land area to get additional population into a district, you have to add a tremendous amount of land in order to get many people. And that's one of the things that leads to the widespread districts that exist in Southside and Southwest Virginia.
Has it been a challenge for you to meet some new communities and get a feel, or do you feel like these geographically dispersed regions all have the same needs and concerns?
Well, basically, if you, first of all, no, it has not been hard. You spend a lot of time doing it, but that's not a difficulty that you can't overcome with a little bit of hard work. The common needs from Galax to Hillsville to Stewart to Martinsville, to Danville, to South Boston, to Rocky Mount are basically the same. That is, we have seen significant loss of textile, furniture, and tobacco-related jobs. And so the challenge that is facing us is that though we are making progress in a very difficult economy, we're not making the progress as rapidly as we would like to see it take place. The other thing that's so important is the need for more investment in public education, in higher education, and we are doing that, and those are issues that are spread throughout the district. Transportation is another big issue that's common interest shared across the district.
Senator Stanley, I won't bother to say you're not from around here, are you? But you know, you are a new face to some of us in this region, but to others you've been very familiar. I know the folks in Pittsylvania County, for instance, and folks in Moneta. Talk about this region, this geographically large area, and the feedback that you've been getting from folks as you've met them.
Well, you know, I'm not from around here only because my father was in the military, so I didn't get a choice of where I was born nor where I lived. And so we traveled all over the United States. But my family ancestral roots are here in Franklin County and in Dickinson County up in the coal fields. So I am from around here, and so it's good to be back. Been here for a long time. Been coming to Martinsville since the early 90s. In my truck alone, I've put over 26,000 miles traveling the district since we announced that I was running in the 20th district. And quite frankly, it doesn't take long to find people who are hurting or in need or want their voices heard in Richmond. And what I've found is an ability to reach out to them and find out where their needs are and how we're going to address them. So even though the district is big, and I think when you look at the district, it's a gerrymandered, created district by the Democrat majority in the Senate, and the Democrats from Northern Virginia were the ones that drew it. I mean, they wouldn't even give all of the city of Danville to the 20th district. They kept out 2 precincts because those precincts happened to vote Republican. So we've split the city of Danville in 2 unnecessarily. I kind of liken the shape of the district. If you look at the picture, it looks like a dragon on its back with the feet in the air. We have split up communities of interest unnecessarily in this gerrymandering, and it was trying to hold on to this seat for Democrat control and power. And that, I think, is why we have the tortured district that we have. But what I have found is that the people that I've met, we are a community of interest, in spite of the efforts of the Northern Virginia Democrats to dilute our voice and to make it weaker in the halls of Richmond. And as a community of interest, we have very specific needs which we have to address. And number one, first and foremost, are the economic needs of our people, to put our people back to work and to give ourselves a fighting chance, not only just now, but for their children's future as well.
You know, as a lifelong resident of Martinsville and Henry County, Senator Reynolds, you and I probably share some memories of the glory days of DuPont and Toltex, and a time when not having a job could be a challenge. You listed a lot of companies who have come into this region, but we've seen a move away from the super company, the 500, 600, 700 employee company, to smaller companies. Can you talk a little bit about economic development as it relates to smaller companies versus, say, a Toyota or a Mercedes or BMW that may come in and bring huge economic impact?
Well, Kip, I think it's important to point out that that's the way business grows today. You aren't going to see companies come into a community like DuPont or like Dan River Mills in Danville with large number of employments. The companies that do well today are companies that are continually cutting back on their employment. The way you're going to really create new jobs is get brand new businesses to come into your community. And we are having some progress in that. You know, just take for instance RTI. RTI is making a dramatic investment of in excess of $100 million, but the number of employees that they will have there will not be anywhere near as what you might think for that investment. It'll be less than 200 employees. We are now poised with the development of the mega sites that I played some part in Pittsylvania County, in Henry County, and in Carroll County. We now have mega sites for the large advanced manufacturing centers that will ultimately locate in. The real problem I hear from the economic development people is that right now business has better than $3 trillion set on the sidelines. That business is becoming more efficient, which means fewer employees. But at some point, business is going to start investing that $3 trillion. And Virginia is ranked as the best prepared to take advantage of those opportunities when they come into being. And the mega sites that I've played a part in, along with the leadership in the communities that I've described, those mega sites will be very attractive, and I think you're going to see good things happen in Pittsylvania County, Henry County, and Carroll County once the businesses decide now is the right time to make those investments.
Senator Stanley, you know, the furniture industry, the manufacturing industry has virtually disappeared from Southside Virginia. There is some progress being made in Danville with Swedwood and companies like that. Can you talk a little bit about what your approach would be to economic development for Southside Virginia?
Absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, you have to understand that small business is the backbone of our recovery down here in this area. That I think we would be just as well off starting off with small businesses, getting 10 jobs here, 10 jobs there. That way we can grow than hoping for that one large company to come, which might not come for quite some time. On top of that, you have to look at what the economic burdens are for companies down here and to do business. To ensure an economic recovery, we have to have certain things in place, and I think number one, we have to have a low tax base, especially from the state. We're looking at a 6% tax on small businesses and on businesses in the area. You know, in the tobacco footprint where we've been hit hardest, we have the highest unemployment in the state of Virginia. Martinsville's still #1 unemployment. Danville's the highest in the region for municipalities. We have to lower that tax burden so that those businesses will want to come in. If we could cut that tax rate in half from 6% to 3%, we would encourage those businesses to come in and locate their businesses here, and also to reward the small businesses and the other ones that have been here struggling to maintain their payroll and keep their employees working. On top of that, I think we need to look at education and training for our workforce. We have thousands of people sitting on the sideline right now collecting unemployment, and with that, they're just sitting there. And we have opportunities that we should create for them in technical training and in community college. Also, we have an on-ramp program which is not fully funded, which will allow displaced workers to go get their associate's degree while they're waiting to get back into the employment field, to give them the training and the leg up. Because when these companies come, and they will come, they're going to look at two things: the region, the infrastructure. But the most important thing they're going to look at is the workforce. And is our workforce ready to handle their kind of high-tech, emergent technology kind of job? So we have to do that. We can also do it by creating incentives for apprenticeships in the trades. We have a 19% apprenticeship trade drain. That is, we do not have enough electricians, plumbers. You know, we need those trades, and we need to offer incentives to businesses that practice in those trades to train the people that will become certified later in life. And I think finally we have to create incentives for investment in small business. You know, Senator Reynolds is right, there's a lot of money that's on the sidelines right now. There are a lot of mom and pop operations that are afraid of what the future is going to hold. We need to give them the incentives and the hope of the future so that they can invest in their small business if they want to start it up or they want to expand it or hire more people, and even create incentives so those banks will get that money off the sideline.
All right, let's ask this question because now we've hit the pocketbooks. Now let's talk a little bit about some issues that may make people a little uncomfortable. There seem to be three large social issues that concern a lot of people in Virginia, specifically in Southside Virginia, I think perhaps more so than other regions. I want to talk about the issue of right to life and right to choose. States play a big part in determining the laws that allow a woman to have access to an abortion. Senator Reynolds, let me start with you. Could you very clearly define for me, please, your position on the right to choose or the right to not choose?
Well, first of all, the Supreme Court has spoken. The Supreme Court has told us what the law of the land is with regards to what states can do or cannot do with regards to regulating abortions. But let me tell you first of all, I'd give anything if there was no, if it never had to happen that a woman made the choice to have an abortion. I wish we could prevent that issue from having to present itself. However, having said that, let me tell you about some of the things I have supported in the past in the General Assembly. I carried bills that required parental notification. I carried bills and worked to get bills passed that required parents to have to consent before a child could have an abortion. I voted in favor of the ban on partial birth abortions. Those are things that I feel very strongly about, and I have worked hard to get through the General Assembly and will continue to do that. The right to choose is protected to some degree or other by what the Supreme Court of the United States says, the United States Constitution says with regards to the right to privacy. We take an oath that we have to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I try the best that I can when those issues are present themselves to vote in accord with the Constitution of the United States as interpreted by the Supreme Court, but also to work hard on those other issues that I've talked with you about that we have adopted in the General Assembly while I've been a part of the General Assembly.
Senator Stanley, your feelings on how a state can, in effect, affect the process of abortion?
Well, Senator Reynolds is correct that under Roe versus Wade that that abortion was recognized as legal under certain circumstances by the Supreme Court. But let us not forget that the Supreme Court doesn't always get it right. The Supreme Court came out with decisions like the Dred Scott case, which said that African Americans were less than one whole human being. So when I hear things that the Supreme Court has ruled, I take that with a grain of salt. And I think, quite frankly, life begins at conception. And we should do everything we can to preserve life. I am pro-life, and I believe, even though I didn't hear whether he was pro-life or pro-choice, certainly I will do everything in the General Assembly to protect life. Now, be that as it may, we had one very important bill this year that came across from the House of Delegates with regarding to abortion regulations in hospitals. Abortion clinics have not been regulated. That is, they're not regulated for hygiene and for safety of the woman. This bill came across amended from the House of Delegates, and we worked hard to get a 20-20 vote tie, which the Lieutenant Governor broke, and that bill was signed into law protecting women. Unfortunately, Senator Reynolds chose to vote against that bill in accordance with what Majority Leader from Northern Virginia, Democrat Dick Saslaw, wanted him to do. I think that shows that, quite frankly, when we talk about life, we also have to talk about safety and hygiene. And in that bill, that was a very important bill for Virginia, and bills like that should come across from the House of Delegates. Unfortunately, life bills like that are usually killed in Democrat-controlled Senate committees, education and health. So to see that come across was a historic moment. I wish Senator Reynolds would have joined us as two Democrats from his side of the aisle joined us in voting for the measure. I think it's an important measure for life, and it's an important measure for the safety and health of women.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for that. And we are going to take another commercial break for just a moment. And when we come back, we're going to discuss advertising. Has it been a little too negative? We'll talk about that and so much more when we come back. Stay tuned.
In Virginia, we're growing our economy and creating new jobs and opportunities. We cut spending and balanced our state budget without raising taxes. Virginia is ranked the #1 state for business. To keep Virginia moving forward, I need Charles Poindexter in the House of Delegates. Charles will work with me to bring more jobs to Southern Virginia. A vote for Charles Poindexter is a vote for more jobs.
Thanks, Governor. I'm Charles Poindexter, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Paid for by the Republican Party of Virginia.
Hello, I'm Lane Perry, your sheriff. For the last 4 years, we've been busy working for you. We are involved in all aspects of the community meetings and neighborhood watch groups. We are striving for the professional services that you expect and deserve. Along with professional services, effective management of personnel, and efficient operation within your community. We have utilized grant money to make technological advancements and upgraded to digital equipment. The Henry County Sheriff's Office works with all federal, state, and local officials. In 2011, the Henry County Sheriff's Office is fully accredited. I ask for your continued support on November 8th to continue working for you. Please vote Lane Perry for sheriff.
This ad paid for and authorized by Lane Perry for sheriff.
After 14 years in Richmond, what has Roscoe Reynolds done? Reynolds promised more jobs, yet unemployment has doubled. Reynolds promised lower taxes, yet voted for countless tax increases. Reynolds promised to control electric rates, yet rates have increased a staggering 60%. Enough is enough.
Hi, I'm Francis there, and I'm running for the school board from the Ridgeway District. I have been a teacher in the Henry County school system for 35 years, and teachers should be allowed to teach. I know how important discipline is in the classroom, and I intend to strongly support the administration and faculty in discipline matters. I will make sure that your tax dollars are spent wisely to improve education. I'm Francis there, and I would appreciate your vote on November the 8th.
I'm Roscoe Reynolds, candidate for state senate, and I sponsored this ad.
Creating jobs, cutting taxes. That's Southside Senator Roscoe Reynolds. Reynolds voted for a new economic development fund to create 3,500 new jobs here. Helped stop a 25% electric rate increase. Voted to kill the death tax and to take the sales tax off of food and prescription drugs.
The attacks on Roscoe Reynolds are false and misleading.
Shame on you, Bill Stanley. Roscoe is a good...
It seems ironic. I've met both these gentlemen. They're so civil and so pleasant to be around, and then I turn around to watch the TV and I'm like, wow. Do either of you cringe sometimes when you see your own ads playing, or do you only cringe when you see your opponent's ads playing?
I think most of us cringe when we see a lot of ads played. It's very unfortunate that the way you have to do today to get people's attention is be a little bit over the top.
Do you have to do that though?
I reckon it's very clear you do.
I mean,
listen, you look at any political person with political knowledge,
right.
They'll tell you got to do it that way.
Well, who's going to stop it?
It won't stop.
Who's going to step back and say it ain't going to happen?
It just gets worse and worse and worse. And it will stop when the voters say we don't want it anymore.
I read an article, I think from the Lynchburg paper, that said that you've spent a lot of time grassroots going door to door,
sure,
meeting people. What are their reactions to these ads? Have they said anything about them?
It's amazing to me how much support that I have had from people who said it's time you responded, and appreciate the fact that I did respond the way that I did.
Well, let's talk about the response for a second. You've had a couple of ads, Senator Reynolds, that have received less than sterling support from political fact checkers, one of which, I tell you what, can we look at that commercial, guys? We're ready to go. All right, let's take a look at this commercial in question.
I'm Roscoe Reynolds, candidate for state senate, and I sponsored this ad.
After 20 years as a Northern Virginia trial lawyer, Bill Stanley moved south, got elected to the Senate, then moved again, dumping his district to run for the Senate here. Now Stanley's running a negative campaign.
Stanley is not even in the phone book. That's bad.
Real bad.
Fellow Republican Jeff Evans said Stanley is a disloyal, calculated politician.
You ain't from around here, are you, boy?
All right, let's do it. Senator Reynolds, do you stand by that ad?
Sure.
Even
I stand by that ad. That language that was used was language that was used by the former chairman of the Republican Party in Henry County, describing my opinion. And let me just tell you, it goes further than that. Another man, another Republican candidate said, he has few, if any, ties to this district. Little or no stake. He has deserted his constituents to ingratiate himself to his political masters in Richmond. That was Doug Dunlap, a Republican. I mean, the language I've used has been language that was used by Republicans to describe my Republican opponent.
Senator Stanley, when you first saw that ad, what was your reaction to it?
Well, it's just false. It's absolutely false. Now, first of all, Jeff Evans said that in a moment of anger when he failed to qualify and follow the law on the Republican ballot when I announced that I was going to run in the 20th District. Number one, I've only been, and Roscoe knows this because I've known Roscoe when I was coming down here before I was a lawyer and working for a lawyer, that I've only been a lawyer for 17 years. I moved down here moved my practice down here in 1998, been here ever since. So it's not like I just came off with a dolly full of boxes and came down from Northern Virginia to run for office down here. The other thing is that I didn't dump my district. The Democrats from Northern Virginia, with the agreement of Senator Reynolds, took 40% of the 19th district and put it in the 20th district. Senator Reynolds had never represented Pittsylvania County or the city of Danville before. It was in the 19th district for the last 10 years. So that's when they carved up the 19th district, they left me with 17% of the people that I represented, only a portion of Franklin County. So I wasn't dumping the district to run again. So on top of that, you have a phone call, I think. On top of that,
I will ignore it for you.
On top of that, you know, there's nothing cold or calculated about it. I was elected in January to represent the people of the city of Danville and Pittsylvania County and Franklin County and Campbell County. I want to continue that service, but it's just disingenuous when you talk about something, when you put an ad up there that's totally false. You know, and of course, these are two gentlemen and now Senator Reynolds cites, those were two gentlemen that were at a time, until they failed to qualify for the ballot for the Republican nomination process, who were my opponents. So of course, what do you think they're going to write? But it's just not true. I have known and been down here since the 90s. My parents have owned property here since the 80s. My ancestral home is here. My first case I ever tried was before Judge Stone in the old Henry County General District Court. So in fact, the first about 15 or 20 cases I tried were here in Henry County. So when I see an ad like that, I laugh. I laugh only because, you know, the gentleman that says, "You ain't from around here, are you, boy?" Actually, I hear that 4 or 5 times a day, and I've gotten a real positive response for it. So I think it's kind of backfired, and people are angry about it, not only for what it does, but what it also tries to portray. You know, and these are people outside our area that are doing these ads. It portrays our area and the people from our area as somehow, you know, bib overall wearing and cap wearing and saying stuff like that. Even the African American community that I've talked to are upset about the use of the reference of the use of the word boy. So, you know, it crosses the whole spectrum of not only being untrue, but just being plain silly. And instead, you know, my commercials talk about issues. Look, this is where unemployment is. We need change. We need to go in a new direction. We need to think new ideas. Their commercials seem to only be personal attacks about where I'm from or that my number's not in the phone book. I don't know about him, but when you're an attorney, you can't really have your phone number in the phone book. And I moved in June, so the next phone book, which will come out, I would think at the end of the year, might have my phone number in it, and certainly my law firm numbers in it.
Yes,
Let me just say,
Sure.
I've had my number in the phone book since 1967. It's in the phone book today. You can go look it up. I've got my office number and my phone number, and I let everybody know that. I don't, that's stunk. The other thing is, I have represented Pittsylvania County. I represented Pittsylvania County in the House of Delegates from 1991 until 1996 when I got elected to the Senate. In 1996, I represented Franklin County. In 2001, the Republicans took Franklin County away from me and gave me the western end of the district. So what Senator Stanley's talking about, it's not new on the scene. It's something that's happened on many different occasions in the past.
All right, well,
I mean, he's not even addressing the fact that I've not been a lawyer for 20 years. Is that true or is that not true? I've been a lawyer since 1994. If you do the math, that's 17 years. So that factually is false.
Did you move into district to run against me?
I moved because you took my district away from me.
I didn't take your district
you and your
away
political
from you
masters from Northern Virginia.
any more than your political masters in 2001 took my district away from me.
Well, you know, I think, though, if you address the facts, you're factually incorrect that I've not been a lawyer for 20 years. It's been 17. I didn't just move down from Northern Virginia. I've been here a long time. I think when you look at all that stuff, yeah, my phone's not in the phone book. I don't have a landline phone. I use a cell phone, and I have such for 6 to 8 years. So, you know, you're just trying to distract people from what is a record of higher taxes, more regulation, increased government spending, and we have no jobs. And instead, let's talk about the guy who's supposedly from Northern Virginia, trial lawyer. I mean, he may say that I'm from Northern Virginia, but I was up in Richmond, and the best I can tell, he votes like he's from Northern Virginia.
All right, let's take a look at one of Senator Stanley's ads, and Senator Reynolds will give you a chance to respond to some of the accusations in there. Let's take a look at this. Guys, can we run that, please? Here we go. Okay.
Roscoe Reynolds has some nerve. We're losing jobs and Roscoe's busy running silly, false political ads. Does he really think his negative ads will make us forget he's voted for job-killing tax and spending hikes? Those were our neighbors' jobs, our friends' jobs, our jobs. And Roscoe's negative ads can't make us forget. We need new ideas, new leadership. Bill Stanley for State Senate.
I'm Bill Stanley, candidate for State Senate, and I approve this.
Okay, Senator Reynolds, the ad seems to paint you as a tax-raising job killer. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, that's inaccurate. Let me just tell you that even in their own advertisements, the Republicans are using, and I voted for bills that got this. We're #1 in the United States for business atmosphere. We're the best run of the 50 states. You don't have job-defeating taxes being adopted and have those reputations. My record is clear. I was one of the co-patrons and voted to repeal the estate tax. I voted to repeal the tax on prescription drugs and to lower the tax on food. There are many tax cuts I've voted in favor of and fought for. The tax relief for buying school supplies, for returning to schools. There are many tax decreases that I have voted for, and it's wrong and incorrect to portray Virginia's tax system as being discouraging to businesses coming to Virginia. We have the best environment for businesses in the United States. I serve on the Small Business Commission. Actually, I'm co-chairman of the Small Business Commission. We've adopted every piece of legislation that's been requested by the small business community through the General Assembly. You don't do those things and kill jobs.
Senator Stanley, that's your ad.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it? Do you stand behind the statements that are inside it?
Let's talk about it. 14 years ago, when Senator Reynolds became a senator in the 20th District, unemployment in this area was about 4%. When I was coming down here 14 years ago, when you drove through Martinsville Uptown, there wasn't a storefront that was empty. Things were thriving. What we saw in 14 years is state taxation and state spending, and specifically state spending has increased 73%. So if you're going to increase the size of government and government spending 73%, you're going to have to raise taxes. Well, most of the taxes that Senator Reynolds was talking about, the tax cuts that he voted for, were well into the early part of his term. Since then, he's voted to tax senior citizens' Social Security benefits. We're now taxing the Social Security benefits, hard-earned money that senior citizens put away with the government, with that trust, to come back and now to tax that money which they'd already earned and had been deducted before. He voted for the largest tax increase in Virginia history, $1.4 billion with a B, dollars. He has voted for an increase in the gas tax. Now that's the last thing we need right now in a bad economy. He even suggested in committee this year that we needed to look at an increase in the gas tax. Now that's taking money out of your and my pockets when we're trying to get to our jobs. That's taking money out of small business owners that are struggling to get by. It makes the cost of goods getting to market more expensive, and it makes everything worse. Now, you know, I don't understand how they think that let's increase the size of government and let's increase spending and let's raise everybody's taxes, and then they wonder, why are so many people unemployed? Why is our unemployment rate doubled? I mean, 4% unemployment rate in Martinsville now, 17, 18% now. I mean, the proof's in the pudding right there. And on top of that, he voted to raise the tax on cigarettes Talk about being pro-tobacco, 1,100 times what it was originally. So when we talk about tax raising, quite frankly, the Democrats, and in particular Senator Reynolds, haven't found a tax increase that they haven't liked. And this is not the time to raise taxes. This is the time to create less burden, smaller government. We have retreated to 2006 spending levels because of Governor McDonald's initiatives, not the initiatives from the Senate. His leader, Dick Sasselaw out of Fairfax, Virginia, said, and it's on YouTube, he said, "You can't raise taxes high enough to satisfy me." With that kind of mentality, they believe government is the solution. I believe people are the solution, and government should stay out of their way and stay out of their wallets.
It's important to point out that the gasoline tax in Virginia has not been raised since 1986. It's important to point out that it's actually been 15 years and not 14 years. It's important to point out that during at least 7 of those years, there was a Republican sitting as governor. It's also important to point out that for more than 10 of those years, I was in the minority, that the Republicans actually had control of the General Assembly. It's also accurate to point out that employment has actually decreased. Unemployment has actually risen in Virginia since Bill Stanley got to be senator. It's also risen since Governor McDonald got to be governor. But it would be wrong for me to say that that unemployment rate that's increased is their fault. It's not their fault. The problem with unemployment in Virginia is not being created by policies adopted in Richmond, Virginia. It's being created by decisions being made outside of the Commonwealth of Virginia and outside the Richmond General Assembly.
Well, if it is happening outside, then why is it being used as a campaign tactic?
To scare people. To scare people and to make people feel that they are frightened, that they need to get rid of someone who has worked hard for them and to replace them with someone who basically has no record.
But there was a local politician here who one time looked me in the face and said, "Kip Wallace, let me tell you something. The government doesn't create jobs. The government buys jobs through economic incentives that are provided to businesses and by helping them establish themselves and become successful." Senator Reynolds, can you talk a little bit about job creation efforts specific to this region, Southern Virginia,
well,
and whether you think it's done enough?
I've talked about some of it already. I mentioned the companies who have been recruited to come in here. There's not any announcement that takes place that the Tobacco Commission and the Governor's Economic Opportunity Fund don't figure in. I have worked hard to see that the Governor's Economic Opportunity Fund was fully funded. I worked hard to create the Tobacco Commission. I worked with other legislators to make sure that part of the funding from the tobacco settlement was earmarked for economic development in the South Side and Southwest Virginia. I've mentioned some of the companies that we bought in here. All you got to do is ask Mark Heath. Ask any of the people involved in economic development in our community is where we would be without the Tobacco Commission. And their response to you will be, we wouldn't be anywhere. We've got to have the support of the Tobacco Commission to do that.
And yet, sadly, 4 days ago, we heard that another 100 jobs are getting ready to leave. I mean, how do you, how do we
you go back and you look at why that happened? What was the cause of that? That was a cause of corporate buyouts. That is, that a company bought out another company and had over capacity. I mean, that's their explanation for it. And there's not anything that we can do in Richmond about that. That's part of the reality that exists here today.
Do you think the businesses are overregulated?
Well, let me tell you this. While I have been a part of the General Assembly, I have not had businesses come to me and complain about regulation in Virginia. I have had them complain about regulations from Washington, D.C., but not complain about regulations from Virginia. As a matter of fact, why do you think it is that Virginia has a reputation as being the best of the 50 states in which to do business? Part of that is the regulatory process that we have in Virginia that we have tried to make as business friendly as we can and still protect the public and protect the environment.
Senator Stanley?
Well, I think, number one, the reason why we are the #1 place to do business, and if Senator Reynolds will remember, we dropped down off the best place and we were below a couple of other states. And we've only regained that because of, one, we have sound fiscal policy, we balance our budgets. Two, we take steps, extraordinary steps with regard to making sure our retirement system is solvent. But number three, I think the most important thing is that we are a right-to-work state. And not only are we a right-to-work state, we're the northernmost right-to-work state on the eastern seaboard, halfway between the northeast and the southeast. And we have to preserve that just one part of what has to be an economic recovery plan and sustainability plan for Virginia is enshrining that in the Constitution. It's not that we're against unions. We want the worker to have a choice, and we want a company to know that they can come in here and set up shop and not be, you know, not harassed by unions and demand that union wages or unions be set up there. I call on Senator Reynolds to support that constitutional amendment. I think that's absolutely important for the future security, economic security of Virginia. I know he gets a lot of money from unions. If you look at his VPAP report, it's littered with a lot of union money. But I think, quite frankly, we need to enshrine right to work as something that is part and parcel of our future as we move forward in our Constitution. But again, you know, when I hear the Tobacco Commission, that's a finite resource. We can't just throw money at situations and hope that they solve problems. We've seen that with StarTech. StarTech got an enormous amount of money from the Tobacco Commission, got some money from the Governor's Opportunity Fund. And what happened? As soon as their 5-year program went, they're gone. They're off to Puerto Rico, and there go our jobs. We have to make sustainable investments using that money. We have to invest the taxpayer money wisely and effectively. And we can't just be throwing around tobacco money and hoping something sticks. We need to do it wisely. Now, there have been some great successes with the Tobacco Commission, and there's been some failures. But we can't just say that's going to be the be-all and the end-all solving our economic problems. We need to put our people back to work. We need to get them energized so they're ready for those companies that are coming in, and we need to lower the tax burden on our small businesses. And quite frankly, the state does have an over-regulation of businesses right now that do not make it a friendly environment. Yes, there are federal regulations, but we need to do something about that. And quite frankly, shrink the size of government so the businesses know that they can operate freely in our free market system.
Senator Reynolds, you seem to have a reaction to the StarTech comment.
Well, yeah, several comments. First of all, I've been in the General Assembly since 1986. There has never, since 1986, been an effort to repeal the right to work law in Virginia that it had any support at all. So it's fixing up an artificial paper tiger to say we need to amend the Virginia Constitution. We need to keep the Virginia right to work law, but it does not have to elevate itself to being in the Constitution. The reason I receive support from people who are members of unions is because I work hard for Virginia's working men and women. And I'm proud that I work hard for Virginia's working men and women. I have a record of fighting for things that they believe in, and I will continue to do that. But with regards to StarTech, I'll bet you if you ask the people that worked at StarTech, they will disagree with Senator Stanley's statement. StarTech provided job opportunities. It provided more job opportunities than it was obligated to. It provided them for a longer period of time than it was obligated to. Do I wish StarTech were going to continue beyond December? I hope they will. You know, there have been several announcements made about employment not ending as quickly as they first made, and those have to do with contracts that StarTech has with outside companies. I'm hoping that StarTech will continue to be here. The other thing that it's important to remember is StarTech really did something great. When they came into the community, their requirement was you have a high school degree. They realized that they overreached. They started GED programs. They had many of their employees get GED degrees and go on to Patrick Henry Community College for advanced training. Those are important things that StarTech did for our community. And I hate they are leaving. I hope that it'll work out that they will stay. But I think it's just dead wrong to say that StarTech's being here was bad for our community. It was good for our community.
Okay. Gentlemen, we're going to take a commercial break, take a deep breath, gather ourselves, and when we come back, we'll talk some more to the two candidates for the seat in the 20th District of the Virginia Senate. Stay tuned.
After 14 years in Richmond, what has Roscoe Reynolds done? Reynolds promised more jobs, yet unemployment has doubled. Reynolds promised lower taxes, yet voted for countless tax increases. Reynolds promised to control electric rates, yet rates have increased a staggering 60%. Enough is enough.
Hi, I'm Francis there, and I'm running for the school board from the Ridgeway District. I have been a teacher in the Henry County school system for 35 years, and teachers should be allowed to teach. I know how important discipline is in the classroom, and I intend to strongly support the administration and faculty in discipline matters. I will make sure that your tax dollars are spent wisely to improve education. I'm Francis there, and I would appreciate your vote on November the 8th.
Hello, I'm Lane Perry, your sheriff. To give you an idea of how busy we've been these past 4 years, let's look at some facts. We made over 14,000 arrests. 847 of those were drug-related. When over 188,000 calls came in, we were there. On top of that, we take care of the courts, protect our schools, and run a jail. In 2011, the Henry County Sheriff's Office is fully accredited. I ask for your continued support on November 8th to continue working for you. Please vote Lane Perry for sheriff.
This ad paid for and authorized by Lane Perry for sheriff.
In Virginia, we're growing our economy and creating new jobs and opportunities. We cut spending and balanced our state budget without raising taxes. Virginia is ranked the #1 state for business. To keep Virginia moving forward, I need Charles Poindexter in the House of Delegates. Charles will work with me to bring more jobs to Southern Virginia. A vote for Charles Poindexter is a vote for more jobs.
Thanks, Governor. I'm Charles Poindexter, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Paid for by the Republican Party of Virginia.
I'm Roscoe Reynolds, candidate for state senate, and I sponsored this ad.
Creating jobs, cutting taxes. That's Southside Senator Roscoe Reynolds. Reynolds voted for a new economic development fund to create 3,500 new jobs here. Helped stop a 25% electric rate increase. Voted to kill the death tax and to take the sales tax off of food and prescription drugs.
The attacks on Roscoe Reynolds are false and misleading.
Shame on you, Bill Stanley. Roscoe is a good...
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you're enjoying this because I think that this is a true window into each candidate's positions. And gentlemen, again, I want to thank you for taking time out of what I know is a busy schedule to come here and speak directly to the voters of this region. One thing I want to give you the opportunity to do, and I think that this is important because both gentlemen, you obviously know each other. It's not as if you've been strangers. You've probably had political careers where paths have crossed. But let me do this for you, Senator Reynolds. Is there a question that you have for Senator Stanley that you think has not been asked, that no one has articulated? Is there something that you want to know?
A couple of things. One, who was it that promised him $1 million for campaign funds? And he also, he made that statement when he announced he was moving into the district to run against me, that he had been committed $1 million. Who made that commitment? And the other thing, he's publicly stated that he's been promised seats on whatever committee he wishes. And I'd like to know who it was that made that promise to him.
Well, again, just like his ads, he's factually incorrect. I never said I was promised $1 million to come into the district and run. What was said to me merely was that to unseat an entrenched Democrat like Roscoe, who has the support of unions, who will have support of Dick Sassler and the Northern Virginia Democrats, who are going to bring all this money to bear, that it's going to take about $1 million to get your message out over top of this long entrenched Democrat who's been here forever. So that was an assessment I made of what it would be, what someone made it to be, me, that it would be to take in this race to defeat a long entrenched incumbent who's been there too long. The other thing he asked was with regard to committees. There has been no promises to committees, but I will demand, first and foremost, that we get somebody on Commerce and Labor and also on the Agriculture Committee. You know, right now the Agriculture Committee, controlled by the Democrats, their chairman of that committee, the one that determines what bills come across, the ones that determine the fate of our rural South Side and Southwest Virginia, is from the city of Alexandria. And I think, quite frankly, and I know this for a fact, every chairman in every committee that the Democrats control, that Senator Reynolds went along with, is from Northern Virginia. We have no Southern representation on these committees as chairman, and that needs to change. There's been no promises to chairmanship, but I would demand especially if we're in a Republican majority. And I asked when I got there in January to be on agriculture, but they couldn't knock one of those Northern Virginians off agriculture to put somebody from Southside and Southwest Virginia on there at his request. I have asked to be on commerce and labor because I think it's important for our area, and I've asked to be on agriculture. And so there's no promises, but I think, quite frankly, if we return the majority of the Senate to Republican hands, that I'm going to be a strong voice and firm voice for the direction of the Senate, and will be so for Southside Virginia, only Southside Virginia.
Senator Reynolds, does that sufficiently answer your questions?
Yes. Just would like to point out that if I'm reelected, I will be the senior Democrat on the Committee of Agriculture, Conservation, and Natural Resources. And if the right circumstances take place, I'll be chairman of that committee.
All right, Senator Stanley, do you have a question for Senator Reynolds?
Well, no. Yeah, my question would be this. Senator Reynolds, in your latest ad, you've stated that I violated my pledge not to vote for tax increases, and you cite 2 bills where you say I voted for tax increases. What I'm wondering is that how can you say that the 2 bills that you cited that you voted for were tax increases when neither one of those had anything to do with tax increases whatsoever?
They both were increased fees to consumers. And I stand by that and stand by the ad. The ad is accurate.
And again, I guess I can only say this. Let's talk about the bills real quickly and see if you disagree with me and if I can have a follow-up.
Sure.
Bill number 1 involves soil and conservation for inspections of private landfills, and that the owners of those landfills had asked for a cap on the fees charged for services provided by the Commonwealth of $1,000 or a certain calculated formula. That fee paid by the private land owner that uses the land as a landfill to the state for the state services, how is that a tax?
Same as it is a tax on the folks that purchase gasoline that you've accused me of. It's basically a user's fee.
It's not a tax. It's a fee for services from the Commonwealth. The second bill that you cite was a bill in committee that you and I both served on that allowed municipalities that provided garbage pickup, sewer, and water to their customers who lived within the city limits, if they were delinquent on those, on paying those bills for services rendered, that they allowed to put a lien. The municipality would be allowed to put a lien on the property owner. How is that a tax?
It ends up that the property owner has to pay it. It's another, you've talked about taking power away from government, and yet you're voting to give even more powers to government against its citizens. Okay. I stand by those ads. Those 2 are correct.
Great. And then my final follow-up. You understood that I voted for that bill, the second bill we just talked about in committee, but voted against it on the floor. Is that right?
I remember. My recollection is that you voted for it. I apologize if my recollection is wrong.
I voted against it on the floor of the Senate where it really counts. Secondly, you voted for both bills, did you not?
It's my recollection that I did. However, the issue...
So then you're voting for taxes and government, as you just said.
The issue is not... I didn't make a commitment. You're the one that made the commitment. You made it shortly before you cast those votes.
Senator Reynolds, you made a commitment not to raise taxes. You signed a no tax increase pledge, and then you systematically went and broke it in Richmond shortly thereafter after signing the pledge. Now you're telling the people out here in your ads that I'm raising fees and increases and voting for tax bills that aren't tax bills, that aren't increasing fees. They're what the actual landfill owner wanted, and you voted for them. So therefore, aren't you defeating your own purpose for which you're trying to accuse me of doing something wrong?
I'm just pointing out to the fact that you voted for measures that, in effect, forced higher fees upon citizens. And that's the same thing that you accuse me of doing, and it's contrary to the promise you made that you wouldn't do things like that.
I've kept my promise and have never voted for a tax increase and will never vote for a tax increase. You, on the other hand, vote for you voted for every tax increase that came across in the Senate floor that I voted against this year. You voted for tax increases every time they came to the Senate floor when I voted against them. And now to say that a lien for services allowed by the municipality that you voted for is somehow a tax increase is, again, just not only misguided, it's misleading. And it's unfair to the people to try to tell people this is an orange when it's really an apple.
It's no more misleading than it is when you try to tell people that it's Reynolds' fault and Reynolds' fault alone that there's been loss of jobs and high unemployment in Southside and Southwest Virginia.
Well, Mr. Reynolds, Senator Reynolds, I didn't see one bill that you offered this year in the General Assembly that had anything to do with creating economic opportunities here in Southside and Southwest Virginia. I, on the other hand, went in January, I was elected on the 11th, came there on the 12th, and immediately provided bills that would help our area. And in fact, you know, even a bill that was referred in a committee that you were on, that would have given us an incentivization for our people here at the local level to put our old industrial buildings back into play.
Economic development people tell me they have the tools, they don't need other tools. The bill you're talking about would take money out of the general fund to meet all the state's needs, including pre-K through 12 and higher education. You cannot just give tax credits when tax credits are not needed. Businesses are not saying to economic development, and they're not saying to the Virginia General Assembly, what we need is tax credits. That's not what's happening. We have given economic development authorities the tools they need to bring businesses into Southside and Southwest Virginia, and the record is clear that accomplishments are being made in that area.
Well, you know, this is a bill, quite frankly, that would have helped us put our old industrial buildings back into service. Would have given a tax credit to a company that would have retrofitted, upfitted, and modernized that building, so it then would hire people and employ people. You know, you may think that takes money out of the fund of K through 12. It doesn't, because that building is dormant. You're not even getting real estate tax benefits from it, and it's not employing people. So what we're seeing is a drain of revenues to the state rather than an increase. If you create an incentive for the corporation to come in and take one of our old buildings, let's say Toltex, DuPont, one of those old buildings, retrofit and modernize, and put 100 employees in there, let's give them a dollar for dollar tax credit for that modernization and putting our old buildings into service, so it's no longer a tombstone to our past, and it's a benchmark to our future.
Our localities and economic development people have the authority to do that without the bill. They can provide tax credits at the local basis. They can provide grants and other incentives that are necessary to match any tax credit that would accumulate because of investment in the building.
Okay, gentlemen, it seems like we have come down to jobs. Jobs, 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 jobs. And jobs feed schools. Schools feed everything else that could come along. But really, when it comes down to it, as a member of the Senate, there's going to be a big, am I correct in saying there's a 4-vote swing right now between Republicans and Democrats?
18 Republicans and 22 Democrats.
Okay, so we've got
two
vote margin, I apologize.
Two vote change.
Given that 2-vote change, almost every article that I've read has said that this is the must-see race. This is one of the most important in the Commonwealth. And as such, a ton of money has come into this race. Can you talk about your biggest contributors? Are you beholden to them the day after the election? And how do you balance the needs of your campaign versus being honest and true to your constituents?
Kip, every contribution that I receive of $100 or more is reported. You can look today and find out everyone who has contributed to me. I don't go back and look to see the people that have contributed to me. I've got a record of more than 25 years in the General Assembly. And if there's anyone that thinks that I'm voting the way people contribute to me, they're dead wrong. I've been willing to take on Appalachian and to fight with powers that make large contributions to members of the General Assembly. But it is wrong and not correct to indicate to anyone that I am influenced by the contributions that are made to my campaign. And I would urge you to look at the record, to see the names of the people and the groups that have given me money, and to see the votes that I've cast. And you will see that I have cast my votes independently of who has contributed to me. My opponent is going to have some real difficulties if he gets to be elected, because basically his campaign is being financed by the Republican leadership in the General Assembly. And his obligation is going to be to the Republican leadership and to Governor McDonnell if he's elected. And Governor McDonnell is not right about everything. When he's right, I'm with him. But when he's wrong, such as taking money away from public schools, basically through giving tuition tax grants to businesses that make contributions to private schools, I'm going to fight him on that. I understand my opponent thinks that's a good idea, but I got to tell you that it's clear when you look at Reynolds' record that Reynolds has stood up and been an independent voice in the Senate. I get as much criticism for voting against Democratic bills as I do for voting against Republican bills.
Who
I think that's because I'm in the middle.
Who is your largest contributor?
I have no idea.
You don't know who the largest contributor to your
I told you,
campaign is?
Kip, I don't follow the contributions as they come in.
Okay.
You can look and see, and you can find out. That information is public record.
Okay.
And you can make that determination.
That's not the most responsible answer I think I've heard tonight. You know, I think you need to be fully aware of who's donating to your campaign to make sure. You know, there have been attempts by Appalachian Power. Unlike Senator Reynolds, who has accepted money from Appalachian Power in the past, I will not accept money from Appalachian Power. And for one reason, because I represent individuals who are wronged by Appalachian Power in eminent domain, taking their land and not permitting them to use it as they see fit. I'm involved in litigation in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals against AEP, so I would never accept money from AEP. On top of that, I'm going to answer your question. The Governor's Opportunity Fund has given us a significant amount of money. They have because they care about Southside. You know, the governor made a promise to Southside and Southwest Virginia that he would be down here, that he would be working hard on the economic development and revitalization of our area. He's kept that promise. And he understands that a Republican majority in the Senate is essential to making sure that the last 2 years of his plan to return our area to economic greatness can occur. And it can't occur with Dick Saslaw and the Northern Virginia Democrats, who, I've read his report, those are the ones who are giving him money, control the outcome, because all they want is more taxes, more regulation, more government spending, and let's blow up the government. And I think if you look at Senator Reynolds' record, you'll find that the overwhelming majority of the time, over in the 90 percentile range, he's voting with Dick Saslaw and the Northern Virginia Democrats, and not necessarily with what our interests are down here in Southside and Southwest Virginia. So, quite frankly, if you look also at his fundraising, you can go on vpap.org, you'll see PAC after PAC, Political Action Committee, Special Interest Group, associations, all of those things. The majority of his funds come from those areas. I am proud that a lot of individuals have given, you know, whether it be $5, $50, or $100 to our campaign. And so I hope I've answered your question. Unfortunately, I didn't hear an answer from the other side.
Kip, I had no idea you were going to answer that question. Ask that question. I'll get that information to you the first thing in the morning once I have an opportunity to look it up. And let me tell you, Appalachian, every contribution that Appalachian has made to me in the past 10 years, I have taken that money and given it to companies and agencies that help people who can't pay their Appalachian bill. I have not kept a penny that Appalachian has sent to me for my campaign. I have given every bit of that to either the Harvest Foundation, I mean not the Harvest Foundation, the foundation here in Martinsville that helps people that can't pay their electric bill, and to Appalachian's Customer Relief Fund. So my position on that is very, very clear.
Electric utilities have been a touchstone for folks in this region. I don't know if it's that way for folks in South Boston or for folks who are elsewhere in the region, but I guess the big question is, at what point did APCO become the devil, and why is it such a huge issue in this election? Senator Reynolds, I'll let you go first.
The first thing, let me start off with, that the reason it's a problem is Appalachian rates have gone up better than 65% since 2006. They've got 4 rate increases pending before State Corporation Commission today. In 2007, over my objection, the General Assembly, under Republican leadership, and let's make that very clear, at that time, though Tim Kaine was the governor, Republicans were in charge of the Senate, and Republicans were in charge of the House. Tommy Norment, as majority leader, floor leader for the Senate, carried a bill that was drawn up basically by Governor McDonnell. His staff at that time, he was Attorney General. That bill took discretion away from the State Corporation Commission, gave Appalachian the opportunity to go to the State Corporation Commission as many as 5 times a year to seek rate increases. Now, I pointed out at the time, and the Republican leadership admitted, that the purpose of that bill was to force people to pay higher rates. They said that there was a good reason for that, but I fought them on that, and I said they was wrong. I've gone to every time that the Appalachian has filed a bill for the State Corporation for an increase, I've fought it. In 2006, I was the only member of the General Assembly who went to the State Corporation Commission and testified against Appalachian's request for a 26% increase. They got less than a 5% increase. They have made many requests since 2006. Each time, I've gone to the State Corporation Commission and fought them. Many times I was the only member of the General Assembly who went to the State Corporation Commission and indicated the adverse effect that Appalachian's rate increases were having on homeowners, residents, businesses, both big and small, across the Commonwealth. I even met with a group of manufacturers with Governor McDonald 2 years ago, where representatives from Stanley Furniture Company and Bassett Furniture Company and Vaughn Bassett Furniture Company and other manufacturers said that Appalachian's rates were killing them, that it was costing jobs, that they needed some relief on that. Sadly, that relief hadn't been forthcoming. Now, I'll tell you, since that bill passed in 2007, on at least 3 occasions I filed bills to repeal that, and I will keep fighting to repeal that, because right now, if you are an Appalachian customer, you're paying a higher rate than the State Corporation Commission thinks and has publicly stated that you should be paying. But laws passed by the General Assembly have taken discretion away from the State Corporation Commission and has led to these outrageous rate increases that are taking place. I will continue in the future, as I have in the past, to fight Appalachians' numerous rate increase requests that they've made and to try to get the law back to where it was in the early 1990s, that Appalachian only had 2 rate increase choices a year, and not the 5 that they have presently.
Senator Stanley, let me let you.
Kip, number one, why do it's one thing to talk about opposing rate increases, and talk is cheap when it comes to that. Over 9 years, or over 4 years, 9 rate increases, and each time it sounds like Senator Reynolds has objected to those rate increases, but yet they still occurred. So that's a 0-9 record. And again, you can talk about being opposed to something and then get nothing done, or you can actually put something in that will help fight these rate increases. I put in a bill this year on the Senate side that allows and permits the State Corporation Commission and the Attorney General 60 extra days to scrutinize and to fight rate increases that are made by the power companies. That bill went through the Senate committee without a no vote. Senator Reynolds pulled it out of the block, what we call the unanimous block, when bills usually pass unanimously. And even though I stood up on the Senate floor and said, Senator Reynolds, this is a ratepayer bill. This will help ratepayers. This will help the Attorney General have more of a weapon to fight the utility companies, he voted against my bill. It passed 39-1. So he voted against the ratepayer. He voted against a bill that would help the Attorney General. And I just got a letter from the Attorney General that said, thanking me, that they were able to find through an extended discovery process that they didn't have otherwise, that they had the ability now to fight these rate increases and to keep them from being so high. But let's stop talking about rate increases. Why don't we try to accomplish something where we can actually bring down the rates? Why are rates so high? Well, because the Democrat majority up in the EPA up in Washington, D.C. are putting more regulations on the coal fire, on burning coal. We have coal burning plants, and right now, the EPA regulations that are going to come in are going to cause 2 to 5 of our coal-fired plants to shut down in the state of Virginia. What Senator Reynolds won't tell you is because of these onerous regulations, Virginia only is able to produce 20% of its electrical power needs. It imports 80% of its power from out of state, second only to the state of California. This cannot stand. We are rich and diverse in our natural resources of coal, natural gas. We have oil fields off the shore. We need to explore those. We need to support our coal industry and not put these burdensome regulations on the power companies for a scrubber and an emissions cap. Those kind of things drive power rates up. They pass it along to us. Let's get those power rates down. Let's do something about it. I wish Senator Reynolds would have voted for my bill. My bill helped you and me. It helped you and me by giving the State Corporation Commission and our Attorney General the ability to fight AEP and win. But unfortunately, I think it said utility company on it, so anything that said utility company on it, it must have been coming from a Republican. He was going to vote against it without considering what the bill did.
Kip, if I could just say in response to that, it was my understanding that Appalachian favored the bill, and if Appalachian favored it, I was not in favor of it. And Kip, the remark made 0 and 9, let me tell you, when you ask for a 25% rate increase and you only get 5, he counts that as a loss. I count that as a big win for consumers. Appalachian, in the cases I've testified in, have never gotten what they ask for. Anything less than what they ask for is a victory of consumers. He's also forgotten to point out to you that, number one, the floors that I talked about, where they take discretion away from the State Corporation Commission, The argument in favor of that was it would cause generation facilities to come in Virginia. That's not happened. But the reason rates are going up is not because of what's happening in Washington. It's what's happened in Virginia, the Virginia General Assembly. The rules being changed to favor the utilities at the cost of the consumers. The best example is the change of the rule that said, in the old days, the stockholders paid for the equipment till it was put online. Under the new bill passed in 2007, consumers start paying for it as soon as the money is spent. That's why rates are going up. And that's not because of something happening in Washington. It's because of what has happened in the Virginia General Assembly by the majority, at that time Republican, taking discretion away from the State Corporation Commission and forcing them to allow Appalachian to start recovering as soon as the investment is made, not waiting till the time that it actually benefits consumers.
Well, I think Senator Reynolds and I can agree. I was not in favor and was not there in the General Assembly for the deregulation bill. So he and I agree on that, and I wish he would have been a louder voice to stop that from happening. But you know, to say that he voted against my bill because if Appalachian Power was for it, he was going to be against it, you know, by the force of the Attorney General to make the utility companies submit and go along with this because they were using a loophole in the law to take advantage of the Attorney General and the State Corporation Commission in their time to scrutinize. I think, again, that's just disingenuous. Appalachian gives in, therefore I'm against it because Appalachian's involved. That vote against my bill hurt the taxpayer, hurt the ratepayer, and fortunately 39 senators agreed with me and disagreed with you, and the governor signed it into law, and we see now how effective it is.
Okay, just want to go back and revisit something. Senator Reynolds, I asked you the question who your largest campaign contributor was, and you stated VPAP was a good place to find the information.
It's public information.
Our folks did look that up, and according to the records from the period of 2008 through 2011, your largest contributor was the Democratic Party of Virginia, the Virginia Senate Caucus, in the amount of $431,000. So we were able to get that, and I appreciate you giving us the information on where to find that.
Let me explain that. That's
sure,
the Democratic
absolutely.
Caucus, the Senate Democratic Caucus. We each contribute monies to that fund, and it's used in races where it's necessary, and that's the reason for that.
Okay. Gentlemen, in this race, it has obviously become very heated, and lines seem to be drawn, but how confident are you, Senator Reynolds, that just about 1 week from today that you're going to see a positive result from your campaigning? What is your feeling about how you've run this campaign and what the result is going to be on Election Day?
Well, I think the last person you should ask that of would be the candidate. When Senator Stanley was identified as being my opponent, we came up with the plan. We've stuck with the plan. We feel good about the plan. We have worked hard. I cannot tell you how many hours that I have put in, and that how many hours that have been put in for me by people who care about me and wish for me to be reelected to the Senate. I've done everything that I know to do to try to get reelected. I'm going to continue to do that between now and the close of polls on Election Day on Tuesday. If anyone tells you that they know what the results are going to be, they're misleading you. I feel good about it. I'm fighting hard. We'll continue to fighting hard. And that's my response to that question.
I appreciate it. Senator Stanley.
Well, I think Senator Reynolds is right. You never know what the results of the polls are going to be. You can only put enough effort as is required to win, but also to really show to the people that you're going to work hard for them. Like I said, I've put 26,000 miles on a truck traveling this district, listening to people, making sure I knew what their needs are, and at the same time giving them a message, a positive message for our future. Yes, this is where we are. Unemployment rates are unbelievably high. Our people are hurting. But quite frankly, I have a plan to get us out of it, because government doesn't create a private sector jobs, but it can create the environment for jobs to occur and to flourish. And that's what we're going to do here in Southside and Southwest Virginia. These are new ideas. These are new solutions. And this is the kind of change we need, because what we've had in the past 14 years is just more regulation and more taxes. And guess what happened? Unemployment didn't go down. It went up. And that's our problem. So we've put all the effort we possibly can into it. We've tried to stick to issues on the advertisement. I have not and choose not to attack Senator Reynolds on a personal level as he has chosen to attack me. I have not lied to the citizens of the 20th District with my advertising. And so we've tried to show, look, this is where we are, but this is where we can be. Because in our message, we believe that the sun is rising over a new and better South Side and Southwest Virginia, and that our best days are ahead of us.
All right, let's take a commercial break on that note, folks. Please stay tuned. When we come back, we'll have more, and we will prepare to wrap things up here as the studios of WMDV continue on with our chance to meet both of the candidates. We're missing one, but we're happy to have the two. And so we'll talk to them when we come back. Stay tuned.
In Virginia, we're growing our economy and creating new jobs and opportunities. We cut spending and balanced our state budget without raising taxes. Virginia is ranked the #1 state for business. To keep Virginia moving forward, I need Charles Poindexter in the House of Delegates. Charles will work with me to bring more jobs to Southern Virginia. A vote for Charles Poindexter is a vote for more jobs.
Thanks, Governor. I'm Charles Poindexter, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Paid for by the Republican Party of Virginia.
I'm Roscoe Reynolds, candidate for state senate, and I sponsored this ad.
After 20 years as a Northern Virginia trial lawyer, Bill Stanley moved south, got elected to the Senate, then moved again, dumping his district to run for the Senate here. Now Stanley's running a negative campaign.
Stanley is not even in the phone book. That's bad.
Real bad.
Fellow Republican Jeff Evans said Stanley is a disloyal, calculated politician.
You ain't from around here, are you, boy?
Hello, I'm Lane Perry, your sheriff. To give you an idea of how busy we've been these past 4 years, let's look at some facts. We made over 14,000 arrests. 847 of those were drug-related. When over 188,000 calls came in, we were there. On top of that, we take care of the courts, protect our schools, and run a jail. In 2011, the Henry County Sheriff's Office is fully accredited. I ask for your continued support on November 8th to continue working for you. Please vote Lane Perry for sheriff.
This ad paid for and authorized by Lane Perry for sheriff.
Hi, I'm Francis there, and I'm running for the school board from the Ridgeway District. I have been a teacher in the Henry County school system for 35 years, and teachers should be allowed to teach. I know how important discipline is in the classroom, and I intend to strongly support the administration and faculty in discipline matters. I will make sure that your tax dollars are spent wisely to improve education. I'm Francis there, and I would appreciate your vote on November the 8th.
Roscoe Reynolds has some nerve. We're losing jobs and Roscoe's busy running silly, false political ads. Does he really think his negative ads will make us forget he's voted for job-killing tax and spending hikes? Those were our neighbors' jobs, our friends' jobs, our jobs. And Roscoe's negative ads can't make us forget. We need new ideas, new leadership. Bill Stanley for State Senate.
I'm Bill Stanley, candidate for State Senate, and I approve this.
Welcome back, everybody. Just as a point of clarification, before we begin to wrap this thing up tonight, there were some questions about whether or not the primary donations or folks who made donations to these races had been identified. Let me just, as a point of clarification, Democratic Party of Virginia, the Virginia Senate Caucus for Senator Reynolds, followed by state firefighters, the Virginia Trial Lawyers Association, the Virginia Dental Association, and the Virginia Beverage Association. For Senator Stanley, the Republican Party of Virginia, Newman for Senate, Opportunity Virginia PAC, Strategic Media Group, and Virginia Representative Senate Caucus, the Virginia Representative Senate Caucus.
The Republican Caucus.
Just so we know.
Not his caucus.
Oh, Republican, I'm sorry. And I
Not
say
his
representative, I apologize. The Virginia Republican Senate Caucus. So, just so we want to be fair.
Just like I told you.
One more question. I just want to throw this out before we try to wrap things up here. One of the biggest issues that's going to affect Southside, probably in my lifetime, the lifetime of most of the voters, is the possibility of the lifting of the moratorium on uranium mining in Pittsylvania County, or in Virginia, but specifically this deals with Pittsylvania County and what can be considered the mother lode. I want to ask both candidates directly. Senator Reynolds, do you support a lifting of the moratorium that would allow for uranium mining in the state of Virginia?
I do not. I oppose it. I will not vote to lift the ban. Would you like for me to explain my position?
Sure. Well, let me ask this. Even if the study that everyone is deferring to in December is scheduled to be released in December, even if it comes out and says that they believe it to be safe, you were saying effectively
that issue should not be before the General Assembly in 2012. The report will not come out until late 2011. The General Assembly session starts in January. It should not be dealt with in 2012 under any circumstances. But having said that, my vote's going to be no, and I'd like the opportunity to explain that.
Sure, I'll give you a few minutes. Go ahead.
First of all, we got to look back to the history. In the early 1980s, the Virginia General Assembly decided that there should be a ban on uranium mining in Virginia. It was after that Marline Uranium indicated that they were interested in starting mining in the same spot. Now, let me tell you, there have been several things that happened since the General Assembly session this year that are very important. Number one, you had the earthquake and the tsunami in Japan, and the disruption caused to the economy not only of Japan, but the rest of the world and in the United States as a result of the reactor malfunctioning as a result of that earthquake. Number two, the German government decided after that to get away from having their electricity generated by uranium. Number three, we had the earthquake here in Virginia that exceeded most people's expectations as to whatever an earthquake scale would be in Virginia. Of that, they just thought that there would never be one of that scale. The Dominion Resources facility at Lake Anna was not designed to withstand an earthquake of that intensity. But the real issue to me is this. Two things. Number one, leadership at the uranium group made a statement early in the summer, according to the media, that number one, they were going to seek the repeal of the ban in 2012. Number two, that they thought they had the support of the Republican governor and the Republicans in the General Assembly to get this done. Now, this was before the report was even due to be coming. I found that statement to be unacceptable. It created in many, many people's mind the idea that there was something going on that should not have been going on. There were several things that happened in accord with that left with many people with the feeling that this was not being done according to Hoyle. But let me just tell you, there's one gentleman whom I respect very much, and others who have been involved in economic development, who are committed to the economic development future for Halifax County and Pittsylvania County. And their position to me is that if uranium mining ever starts in Pittsylvania County, we will lose the ability to attract many other industries that we would like to have simply because of the fact that uranium mining is taking place. Now, because of all those things, I've made it clear, number one, I do not believe the issue should be before the General Assembly in 2012. Number two, because of the things that I've talked about, my vote will be no. I'm not waffling on that in any way. I'm not putting any conditions on it. I'm explaining to people up front and definitely and exactly what my vote will be.
Okay,
Thank you.
Senator Stanley.
Well, it's funny that he says waffling. He's accused me in ads of changing my position, I think flip-flopping, which in fact he cited a news report out of the Danville Register in May of 2010 before I was elected the first last year of my tenure in the Senate, which shows, quite frankly, and WSLS TV has shown that it has not been inconsistent. My position is this. I will agree with Senator Reynolds on this regard. And I have said this from the very beginning, way back in the spring, that I do not believe that we should take up this legislation this year. I think we need to wait a year and consider it because we're going to have a very voluminous report coming from the National Academy, a report that they voted to have, a study that they voted to have, and now that he's not going to even consider it or look at it. Also, we have socioeconomic reports. We have to look at the socioeconomic impact to our area. And I've been very consistent and never inconsistent when I've said, unless you can demonstrate to me that it is totally, absolutely, beyond a reasonable doubt, safe and does not pose any risk to the health of our people, to the health of our livestock, to our farms, to our water, to our future, then I am not for lifting the moratorium on banning uranium mining in Virginia. What worries me the most is that it's a rush to judgment from the time the report comes in at the end of December of this year. 12, 15 days later, they want to consider it. On top of that, it takes the localities out of the mix. I think the localities should have a final say in all of this, that our local board of supervisors in each area that are going to be affected should come together and make their own determinations. Finally, I think it's most important that we remember one thing. We never put profits ahead of the safety of our citizens. And in that regard, that is a very high standard. That is a very almost insurmountable standard for me to lift the ban. And on top of that, you need a strong voice to go inside your own party, Republican Party, go over to the Democrats, because we're from here. We're from here where we're going to be affected by it. And I don't like some senator from Chesterfield or Fairfax or the city of Alexandria voting for the future and the future prosperity of my area when it comes to a safety issue and the mining issue such as this.
Gentlemen, I want to take just one moment to thank both of you. First of all, for coming here and spending time with the voters and making clear your positions. I think that this has been an illuminating hour and a half. And I know that it has been a long hour and a half, and I appreciate the viewers who have stayed with us as well. For candidate Jeff Evans, I wish that he would have been able to appear, but we will make the assumption that something happened, and we will hope that it's not a bad thing. We are going to allow each candidate to make a closing statement, and we would ask that this be relatively brief, 2 minutes or less, but to sum up their feelings, their positions, and why they think that the voters of this region should go into the voting booth and flip that switch or fill in that dot. So we're going to start. Senator Reynolds, I'll give you the first opportunity to speak directly to the voters.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to look at where we are in Virginia today and the good things that have happened while I've been a part of the General Assembly. Number one, we have the reputation as the best run of the 50 states. Number two, we have the reputation of being the best state in which to do business. Number three, Virginia is recognized as being the best positioned state to take advantage of the economic opportunities that are going to take place when businesses that have the $3 trillion on the sidelines decide to make investment in Virginia. A child today was portrayed by Scholastic magazine in Virginia as having the brightest future of any of the children in the 50 states. We have a AAA bond rating. We have a balanced budget every year. We have something in Virginia that each of us should be very proud of, and that is that AAA bond rating. Some agencies have downgraded the security rating for the United States because of the uncertainty taking place in Washington. But we have not been doing that in Virginia. We have been resolving our budgetary matters. We have been having a balanced budget, and we are keeping our AAA bond rating. As a matter of fact, our AAA bond rating has only been at risk at one time, and that was because of some policies that were adopted during Jim Gilmore's administration. And ultimately, while the Democrats were in the minority, the majority Republicans addressed that and got that issue resolved. We are constantly ranked with 2 schools in the top 10 in the United States of public institutions, University of Virginia, William and Mary. No other state has more than one. I was Commonwealth Attorney in Henry County for 16 years, and I saw the adverse effect that crime had on our community. I'm very proud of the fact that today, and part of the reason we are able to say this is legislation that I have supported, the crime rate is lower in Virginia than it has been at any time since accurate statistics started being kept in 1972. It's dramatically lower than any of our surrounding areas, any of the areas that surround us. We rank favorably with the small states up in New England. The death rates on Virginia highways continue to decline. We've gone from 1,000 to less than 800. We have many business opportunities that are going to occur because of the investments we have made and legislation that I've helped get through that result in the mega sites, economic development sites that are partnered by Carroll County, Grayson County, and Galax in Carroll County, Martinsville and Henry County in Henry County, and the one in Pennsylvania County that's a partnership between Henry County, Pennsylvania County, Danville, and Rockingham County in North Carolina. I helped establish the Governor's Economic Opportunity Fund, helped fought to keep funding for that when others were trying to cut that, I have fought for the creation of the Tobacco Commission and served as a commissioner on that Tobacco Commission, and we are making progress in dealing with the adverse effect of loss of jobs in Virginia. I've got a record of living in this community, serving this community, and fighting hard for the people in this community. I want to continue to that. I humbly ask for your vote and support on Election Day this coming Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Reynolds. Senator Stanley?
I want to thank everybody who's taken the time to look at this debate and consider the choices that they have in front of them. And I asked a question in the beginning of this debate that I ask again. Are we better off than we were 14 years ago? We have unemployment at 18%. Probably really the unreported is 20% right here in Martinsville. 9–10% in the city of Danville. We can tout a AAA bond rating as Senator Reynolds has. We can say all these things, but we are hurting. We are unemployed and we're raring to get back and go to work. In 14 years, the size of government has increased by 73% in the state of Virginia. The size of government spending in the state of Virginia under Senator Reynolds' watch has increased 73%. That's nearly double. And also, our taxes have gone up. Taxes on senior citizens have gone up. Taxes on gas, taxes on cigarettes, taxes on the largest tax increase in Virginia, $1.4 billion, to pay for that voracious governmental appetite that has been going on in Richmond for 14 years. The question then becomes, what's the answer? Who do you trust? Do you trust Senator Reynolds and his Northern Virginia Democrat friends that believe that there isn't a tax that they don't like, that you can't levy enough taxes against us individuals that will satisfy them? Do you believe in higher taxes or lower taxes? Do you believe in more regulations on businesses or less regulations on businesses? Do you believe in more government and more burden on the individual citizen, or less government and more self-determination for that citizen to live the American dream? My friends, that American dream is in peril in Southside and Southwest Virginia because of higher taxes and bigger government. All that spending, all those tax increases have only resulted in higher unemployment. We've got to get back to lower tax burdens on the individuals, keep more of your money in your pocket, keep more of your liberties and preserve them. Make sure we have less regulations on business, lessen the tax burden that will bring businesses in here. Get job training for our individuals, technical training for our people that are out of work to put them back to work, trade apprenticeships, incentives for small businesses to invest, and people to invest in small businesses. We have to take an active role because you know what? The future of our children depends on it, and talk is not enough. Taxing our way out of it is never going to succeed. Action is required, and our time is now. I'll be a strong voice for you in Richmond. I'll be a strong presence in Richmond to make sure that we put ourselves back on track. This is the best place to live and work and raise a family. But we owe it to our children to leave them with a legacy to where they can have that opportunity, that American dream, and have this as being the place where they raise their family and they achieve that American dream. If you want the days of the old way of doing things, of higher taxes and bigger government, then your choice is for Senator Reynolds. But if you're looking for new solutions, new leadership, instead of talk, action, then I ask and I humbly ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. I will not let you down. I will be a tireless worker, and I will get results. Thank you.
Well, thank you both, gentlemen, and I also want to thank the production crew here at the studios of WMDV. They have done a tremendous job to put this together, and I think that they definitely deserve a pat on the back. It has been a team effort to bring this to you. In addition to thanking both candidates, I also want to thank your support staffs. They have been excellent, and we really appreciate the communications. Folks, it's all up to you now, and your decision that is just about 1 week away. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Kip Wallace from the studios of WMDV and the Star News Network.